This episode of Behind the Regs is sponsored by Plan Checker. Plan Checker is a UK-based digital platform designed to connect clients with verified building control and construction professionals, making it easier to find the right expertise at the right time for the right job. It doesn't replace building control bodies, and it doesn't carry out restricted activities or functions. It simply creates clearer, more transparent access to the professionals working across the industry. If you're a professional, a client, or part of the wider built environment sector, you can learn more or sign up at planchecker.co.uk. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Behind the Regs. I'm your host, Nader, and my co-host, Jack. Today, we've got David Barley from Total Training and Development. Welcome, David, to our podcast, and thank you for joining us. Before we get into the details around competency assessments, pre-registrations, and all of these discussions, can you give our listeners a brief overview of your background and the work you're currently doing with TTD and BCCA, and obviously your career journey to date so far?
Well, I've been doing this nearly 40 years, so so there's I don't want to go on and on and on, but yeah. So I suppose my career really started that I got a job working for the local authority back in 1986, which seems like an eternity away. It's 40 years next year. So yeah, so I started in 1986, and to be fair, at that time there weren't a great deal of opportunities around in them days. I mean, it was quite difficult, I thought, to find jobs and things. I think going to university was quite challenging for people as well. It wasn't really open to most people and things like that. So I mean, I started on a youth training scheme. I always remember back in the day, I think I was getting £28.50 an hour, or sorry, a week, an hour, something like £28.50 a week, something like that. And but I did that, and I started off as a trainee road worker. That was my job, working for a local authority. And I progressed through, and I did that for a very number of years. But the training development was really good at the time at the council, and we learned to do all sorts, lead to level and lay drains and brickwork and all them type of skills, more like civil engineering type of skills. And as time went by, I actually got a role as a highways engineer. So I made that transition from working as a road worker into like a more a white collar job. And then that really opened up lots of opportunities for me working there. And it was the first time I'd really been to the college. So I did a BTEC in civil engineering, absolutely loved it, really enjoyed doing it. And then back to an HNC in construction. As part of my role, I used to look after estate roads 50% of the time, so brand new housing estates and things like that. And I used to look after utilities, and then the other 25% was very much about looking after the general, members of the public on a day-to-day basis, public services, etc. As I was looking after estate roads, I got more interested into the housing developments and, larger infrastructure and civils, the civils and that type of thing. So I moved jobs. I actually went from being a highways engineer to a building inspector or building control officer. And then started there, and then I did a degree in building control engineering back in 2009, again, which seems a long, long time ago. And that was at Leeds Metropolitan University. Really enjoyed doing that. But I think even at that time, I think I was the last person in 2009 to complete that qualification. After that, they actually stopped running the programme because there just wasn't a demand for it, and that was a shame. And so when I look back on my history, I could say that qualifications and things like that were really starting to slow down, certainly the building control sector. But I did that for a number of years. So I was a building inspector, had a great area, a real diverse range of jobs to look at over the years, anything from domestic to commercial and things like that. But I enjoyed the training development side of it, and I enjoyed education. So I actually left to be a lecturer. I went to work at the local college, and I was lecturing and teaching higher education. So we moved away from doing the BTECs, and we were teaching HNC, HNDs, and we wrote foundation degrees, and we wrote degrees, and I really enjoyed that element of it, working. So I did a master's degree in construction management whilst I was there and things like that as well. And so education's been really, really important to me. But I think I learned some of the skills through writing qualifications and seeing what the sector sort of maybe needed through my role, working as a lecturer. So probably what I did, it was higher education, degrees, foundation degrees, and looking at qualifications where there maybe wasn't qualifications there. Then what we used to do is to write the qualifications, validate them through a university, And then we could offer university degree qualifications through our centre and things like that. Did that for quite a lot of years, really enjoyed that role. But again, I wanted to move forward. So I went back into industry to work for an approved inspector at the time. And I worked for an approved inspector for 5 years. And really doing that was to move from what I'd learned educational-wise. I knew this approved inspector was really keen on, developing their own staff and growing people from the trades and making them transitions and very much grow your own. It was their philosophy to grow your own. So I started with them and wrote a few qualifications. He had them validated and things like that. And then I started Total Train Development Limited with my colleagues, about 6 years ago. So it's been like I say, it's been nearly 40 years of really working in construction, civil engineering, education, and developing qualifications. But I'd say certainly the last 20 years, really, it's been all very much about building control and designing qualifications and putting those through awarding bodies and things like that. And I work really close with an awarding body called the Awarding Body for the Built Environment. I've been working with them now for over 11 years, and over the years we've written some fantastic qualifications, and I'm very much enjoy the process of Ofqual. I think it's a very robust process because it's a regulatory environment. So I'm used to that type of thing, really. So all the things that we do nowadays, the BCCA, the qualifications that we have, they're all done through an Ofqual regulated process through our awarding body, which is the awarding body for the built environment. So again, started with Total Train Development Limited. I carried on where I'd left off working for the approved inspector, looking at getting people into the industry, writing qualifications for school leavers, people who were transitioning from maybe off the tools or maybe architectural practices, or people who maybe site managers but wanted to get a formal qualification. So we wrote qualifications at level 2, level 3, level 4, level 6. We've had people, I'm quite conscious that there's some really great people who work in building control admin, so focused on qualifications around that. It's just, just trying to come up with some really good qualifications. I'm not taking from other units, these are all brand new bespoke qualifications that I think, are needed for the sector. And it's not just me doing it, I get lots of advice from private sector building control about what organisations would like and what the qualifications should look like and things like that. So that's what I've been doing really for the last, say 6 years, 7 years next year. And then obviously, when all the process came out regarding the registering of building inspectors, that was something where I know certainly the private sector looked at TTD to maybe come up with something, and so we put our head above the parapet really, and we approached our awarding body and asked them to start with, could we design something? Could we design something that was very much like a vocational qualification? And that took a lot of backwards and forwards, and the awarding body had to go to Ofqual and things like that. And eventually we came up with a process that we thought was really good, really robust, which turned out to be the BCCA. And then obviously we then applied to the building safety regulator to be a scheme provider, and obviously we got approval to be a scheme provider, and obviously that took off from there really. And that's quite a brief overview, but that's what I've been doing really since I left school, to 86 to where we are now, really.
Yeah, there's a lot that can happen throughout that time. Yeah, as brief as it can be, but I'm sure there's lots you could tell us about how things have worked out and how challenging it can be to be developing all these different things, especially with all the legislative changes.
Yeah.
And with different bodies coming like the BSR. With the profession, one of the big topics people are going to be quite interested in is re-registration, how that's going to work. What sort of challenges do you foresee with the BCCA and with re-registration for RBIs?
Well, we've been thinking about this quite a long time, really, because obviously when we started doing the BCCA, we've learned, we've learned from making mistakes, and the process has got better as time's gone by. And when we first started, I know yourself, Jack, you've been through a process. Lots of people have been through a process. What we designed behind the scenes, we designed Ofqual regulated handbook. So everybody, when you went onto the online portal, you was given an handbook, and we'd like to think that handbook was extremely informative, and it became more so to us that when people started to develop the portfolios, people didn't seem to need lots and lots of guidance, because what we'd produced in the actual handbook itself was that straightforward and informative for people that could develop the portfolio and everything else. So ours was always trying to be so that everybody within the industry could do pull a portfolio together and sit a professional discussion. So we wanted it to make it available for everybody. So for people that don't know, I mean, the BCCA was very much a professional portfolio. Put a strong emphasis on the professional portfolio, CVs, personal development plans, training and education. I mean, training is extremely important, even if it's not building control related. We wanted people to actually submit certification from, if they've been on any form of training course, just to show that they was actively doing professional development. Being members of professional institutions is still, really important to us. And, we really encourage that. We work really closely with CAPE, as you maybe know. We always wanted people to get into professional development. So the professional portfolio was a real strong part for us, where we wanted people to just really emphasise on their professional development. And then the second part was always the work-based portfolio. So to start with, it was initially we wanted somebody to submit 8 projects, but then we realised that was going to be really, really excessive. So we narrowed that down to 4 projects. And what we wanted was people to actually demonstrate their knowledge and understanding of the BIC-off from the start of the project right through to completion. So it was always about, if you can be involved with it from start to finish and you had overseen that project, you could then, you had all this opportunity to demonstrate all of your skills against the BIC-off when you went for your professional interview. So it was very much about a professional portfolio, work-based portfolio. And then the last thing we asked people to do was, we had a form, if you remember, called the Outcome and Reflection Form. And that was basically law, technology, building services. And we just wanted somebody to write a narrative, 300 words maximum, on how they perceived they'd met law, technology, safety, and all the rest of it, whilst they was actually doing the portfolio. And that was really good as well, because that was really informative. And it gave people that wasn't academic just a real good opportunity to write a few hundred words about how they felt they'd covered the elements of the BIC-off. And again, when we read through those, they're really, really informative as well. And then we asked people to obviously sign the code of conduct, which was great. So that came through to us. And again, we learned from that to start with people submitting portfolios like 1,000 pages, and it's trying to have that balance where, you don't want to stop people's enthusiasm, but obviously that's got to be assessed in the time it takes to do things like that. So we asked people to narrow that down to about 200 pages, which was still quite a lot, but that really worked well. So we feel like the portfolio side of it's been really, really good. Going through to interview, all our interviewers, I mean, at one point we had about 120 people helping us right across the sector. That was people from the private sector, public sector, fire engineers, people with highly respect from the building control sector as well. That was really good for those people to do that. And we always tried to do it in a supportive and friendly manner that made the person feel at ease and give them the opportunity to talk about their careers and things like that. So going back for revalidation, we've already discussed this with our awarding body. The BCCA was always designed on 3 learning outcomes, which was really just to develop a work-based portfolio and a professional portfolio. And that'll be the same thing going forward again. So the process there'll be more of an emphasis on the actual professional portfolio, because, we want people to have moved forward in the last 4 years. We want people to have done, more CPD, more professional development, actively participate in training courses. The days have gone, I think, where, you can just come to work, do your job and go home. There's now a really strong emphasis to show that you've maintained it and just learn from what you've learned over the last 4 years, really. So there'll be a bit more of an emphasis on the professional portfolio. The work-based portfolio will stay as well. The 4 projects are there. And again, that's for people to just showcase what they've been doing over the last 4 years. Some really informative jobs that they've been involved with, that they're proud of, and they've been actively participating in them. What we're going to do this time, though, the outcome reflection form is very much about what that person has learned over the last 4 years. So instead of talking about like law against the BIC-off, we'd expect people to say, well, over the last 4 years, I've learnt about law. I've gone away. I've learnt more about these different regulations. I've learnt more about what it says in the Building Safety Act. When it comes to maybe technology, when I went for my first interview, I knew about maybe solar panels, but I didn't necessarily know maybe as much about solar panels as I should have done. Or I did know a little bit about the overheating of buildings and electric car chargers, but I didn't maybe know about it enough, and people are reflecting on themselves. So the outcome reflection form will be a reflectance of that person's, what they've learned over the last 4 years, really. So when they come through for the interview, it should be the person's opportunity to, really talk about what they've been doing at work, how they felt the first process was when they went for the first registration, what they've learned over the last 4 years. So it's going to be very much about that. Where the first part was, I think, was very much about demonstrating your competency. This is all about how you've maintained your competency. So anybody listening to this, obviously CPD is important, training courses, qualifications, team meetings, reading, learning, a type of self-directed or structured learning that you can participate in. That's what the focus on the next round of the BCCA will be about. More about professional development, how you've maintained your competency.
So that again will be for project, will it?
It's still before projects, yeah.
And
But I
could
think
you upgrade at the same time as doing the re-registration? So if you wanted to add on additional.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to, when they go for a re-registration, what we've designed at the moment is that re-registration will be a sole re-registration. If people want to add categories and things like that, they will do that on this current process as it is now, because they're trying to demonstrate their competency against the, obviously, something that they've never done before. If they've been the last couple of years, they've say been doing lots of work at 2A, but now they want to be 2B, they will just be assessed exactly as they're doing now on this portfolio. The revalidation is very much for people who have already been through the process and want to showcase what they've been doing over the last 4 years.
So obviously we've got a bit of time before that process is going to start coming into it. What advice would you give to RBIs now then to get themselves prepared for that?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if you guys know. I mean, I know obviously where you work, Jack. But if you look back certainly back to 2022, I mean, I suppose at the one time I was travelling the length and breadth of the country, meeting up with ARs at the time and what have you, just trying to explain what the BCCA was all about. And I was trying to get that message out to people. And we'll do that exactly the same this time. So what we're hoping to do is the new handbooks, which everybody will be given for re-ral validation, we're hoping to get those done in January and February. And obviously when people apply, that information will be there. Again, I'll be speaking to organisations or individuals. If anybody's unsure about what I'm saying to you now, please just drop me an email, give me a call. But to prepare for it, just get 4 really good jobs that you've been involved with. You think of something that's been interesting. I mean, I think the other thing, when people did the portfolios initially, they didn't know how little or how much information to put in. But if I can just summarise it, it's really for people you're trying to showcase your skill. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to showcase your knowledge and skill. So if you've had something that's been a bit challenging, they're great. If you've had times where it's been a bit conflict on site and things like that, or things haven't maybe gone as well as the builder expected, etc., they're the type of projects maybe that you want. So you want good, informative projects. I look back on the amount of people that went through the process, and to be fair, most of the projects that came through, people, did do that. They actually looked at projects and the good involvement. But you want them to be visual, you want them to be informative and all that type of thing. So when you go for interview, you've got talking points, etc., etc. But for people preparing for it, try and be a bit more active regarding your CPD. Try if you've got any training courses that are available to you within your organisation, do that. People are on the BCCA. You've all got access to the online portal. Try our best to give resources on there. So any new legislation that comes out, we try and upload documents. We're always giving links as well to the planning portal and things like that. I know they're maybe fairly basic, but there's lots of reading to be done, watching, learning. But yeah, I would just look back and reflect on what's happened over the last 4 years and what you've learned over the last 4 years, or how you've maintained your competency and things like that. That's what it needs to focus on, really.
3 very big common words: competence, CPD, and expectations. Are you seeing any common misconceptions or misunderstandings from RBIs, maybe the ones that have done the BCCA route, about what is actually expected of them under the re-registration? Have you had many RBIs approach you because they are maybe confused or misunderstanding what is required, or maybe some of them not able to fully understand how to use the online portal? I went through your scheme, the BCCA, through my previous employer, and the portal, I went on it a few times, and I think it's very good, very well laid out, and the interface is quite user friendly. But have you had other RBIs out there that maybe had some misunderstanding or misconception or not being able to use it in its full capability or capacity?
Think, yeah, I mean, sometimes, I mean, the other thing as well, what we do as well, the platform that we use is a platform called Moodle. So, I mean, anybody that goes to college in the United Kingdom, Moodle is used extensively. It's a global, online resource. I mean, the reason we use Moodle is from my education background. So it's a fantastic resource to use. And one of the reasons we do use Moodle, like you've just said there, Nader, it's very easy to navigate. I think the other thing is what people don't realise is that when they actually log on, we can see when they've logged on to Moodle. So every single time they go on to Moodle, they log on and they look at a document, it records it. So anybody that wants to have the CPD return where we can provide them a report, we can do that as well. And I always said that when we was doing the induction, and it says that in the guidance. But yeah, some people go on it and they maybe don't know what to look at. But again, we're very forward facing. We're one of these where we're trying to do it really friendly. I mean, anybody can ring us, email us, and we respond within a day or so. There's never times where people can't get in touch with us. Obviously, when it was at the absolute peak, it was absolutely manic, but we still answer the telephone. There's our small team of people trying to be supportive and guide people through this process. But I think in general, people got the understanding that if you went on the online portal, the handbooks were there. I think the more people did it, then obviously people talk to each other and say, well, you should do this, you should do that, instead of maybe reading the guidance. So we had lots of portfolios coming in where they've done this and they've done that, then we reject it, or we go back with feedback, well, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, because they've not read the guidance. But if they'd read the guidance, then they wouldn't have had to do it in the first place. And the last thing we don't want to do is when a portfolio comes in, is we only reject them if they absolutely don't meet the criteria. We always give them feedback and explain what they need to do. But that's massively time consuming. Obviously, the perfect scenario is that they submit a portfolio, it meets all the criteria, it's assessed, it's entirely quality assured and all the rest of it. And then that person is then given their email where they can book their interview online. That's the perfect scenario. When people don't follow the guidance, that creates problems for us because it causes delays. We then have to feed back to the person. Then we have this to and froing where they're amending the portfolio, but that's no good for us, no good for them. But I think a lot of the time it's just reading the guidance. And if you don't understand it, just give us a call. That's the best thing to do.
In terms of CPD recording, David, through the portal, you upload like an Excel sheet with the CPD records that you've done.
Yes.
You're also happy to accept CPD records that, for example, may have been uploaded on a different association, because sometimes people don't upload in every single portal that is attached to the professional association or body that they are attached with. So are you flexible in this manner that people can use whatever they've uploaded on their other association membership portal? You're happy to consider that, obviously, as long as it's relevant to their registration and their class and everything.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, like all my CPD is done through CABE. Mine's all done on my CABE thing. So yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I just download my transcripts. Yeah. I mean, what we've done again with Moodle is we've made it really, really simple to use. I mean, some people to start with find it difficult to understand what they have to do. But when you've done it once and you've dragged that Word document, it's really straightforward. And if you guys have done it, you'll see, you'll think, oh, well, that's really, really straightforward. But yeah, I mean, what we do as well, we're always trying to better it. And what we tried to do when we created that template, if everybody uses that same template, it becomes a bit of a norm, so to speak, because we employ one person who literally all day assesses CPD, and obviously the CPD all day long, that's all he does, a CPD return. And then obviously if people haven't done it properly, he rejects it and things like that. But if it's on the same form, it's just easy to navigate. But no, it's not a problem if you're a professional, a member of another professional institution. It doesn't matter. As long as we've got that CPD, we can check that it's self-directed learning, structured learning, and things like that. And what we're after as well, we want people to be better at CPD. We don't want people just to read a magazine. What have you read in the magazine? If you've read an article on fire safety, what have you? We don't expect people to write chapter and verse, but if you've read an article on fire safety, give a small couple of lines. What have you learned? What have you learned from that fire safety? If you've had a Teams meeting, and your team meeting with your people within your organisation, what did you discuss in that meeting? We like learning outcomes because it shows that you've learned something from the meeting. But again, I think people's misconception as well as CPD is that a lot of people think they have to attend things, and they say, well, I don't have time to do
Yeah.
CPD. We're all doing CPD day in, day out. I think it's just
Every
that
day.
every day, every single day. If you sat at home and you watch something on TV that's informative, I'm not saying it's Coronation Street, I don't mean
No.
that, but I'm not saying Coronation Street's not informative, by the way, but I'm saying if you're watching something on TV and it's something that you're interested in, it is a program, I don't know, maybe about fire safety or something like
Grand
that.
designs.
It's CPD, grand designs. If people, that's it. I mean, if building inspectors can look at grand designs all day long and say, well, that doesn't comply, that doesn't comply. But it's just, but it's just we want people to embrace it and do a wide range of structured and self-directed as well. So that's the main thing as well. And all of the organisations that we deal with all have regular team meetings. There's lots and lots of training development going on all the time. And even if it's 15 minutes, record it. Just be mindful to record it. So we ask for 35 hours per year, which is, it's not a massive amount of 35 hours, but 35 hours should be done in absolutely, no time at all. And we just think that should be the minimum of budget. But we're always looking for self-directed and structured learning.
This episode is sponsored by Plan Checker. Across building control and the wider construction sector, one issue keeps coming up: capacity. The work is there, the responsibility is huge, and the pressure keeps increasing. Plan Checker was built to help bridge that gap by making it easier to access independent, appropriately qualified professionals when support is genuinely needed. Whether that's for plan reviews, consultancy input, or specialist advice. It doesn't change statutory responsibility, and it doesn't interfere with regulatory rules. It simply helps people find expertise without relying on informal networks or last-minute phone calls. If you want to see how that works in practice, visit planchecker.co.uk. So would you say that this would be the day-to-day activity or something to be within the norm of an RBI day today, that they should be focusing on, not focusing obviously all their time on it, but
Yeah.
to remain
Yeah.
compliant and confident in meeting these expectations by the time the registration come up, or by the time, not necessarily the registration, by the time their annual CPD submission comes up? If they do that on a day-to-day basis, that realistically would keep them compliant and within those requirements of the CPD, 35 hours, or sometimes even would even be more. Like even now, this podcast
Absolutely,
is
yeah.
part of our CPD, I would say.
Yeah. So you got to remember as well, it's a minimum of 35 hours. It's a minimum of 35 hours CPD. And again, everybody's got busy lives. I fully appreciate that. And the times we hear people say, I haven't got time to do this, I haven't got time to do that. People are, as I say, it's a misconception that you are constantly doing CPD every day. It's just that you've got to record it. That's the key part of it. And just getting that really, really good CPD. But again, CPD, I'm not trying to say this has all got to be building control related. People will carry out CPD activity, which is maybe not building control related, but it still benefits them, like behavioural skills. There's lots of things to do with mental health nowadays. There's lots and lots of different CPDs. There's technical CPDs you can go on. There's the softer skill type CPDs. There's cyber security. There's IT. There's lots and lots of things that you still need as part of being an RBI that supports your role, on a day-to-day basis. So we're saying any form of CPD. We want it obviously to be technical as well, because you're still trying to, gain technical knowledge. And if new products come out, changes to building regulations, amendments, legislation, it's nice to have an appreciation and awareness of it. We don't necessarily expect everybody to pick up every single piece of legislation, read it cover to cover, but you have to have that awareness of it. So it's just keeping up to date with it.
As you said earlier, you do a number of courses through TTD. These are open to public and private sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In respect to the courses, would you say that, say, a level 4 or level 5 or level 6, would they align to different classes of registration? Or if someone was looking at doing something, would you be able to give them a bit of advice onto, okay, maybe a level 5 would be more appropriate for your learning as you're
Yes.
to
Yeah.
A, B, or...
Yeah. So the qualification that we designed, well, there's a couple of qualifications. So we was quite mindful about, certainly like with school leavers who were maybe, coming out of school, but maybe they knew somebody was a building inspector, or they had this perception of maybe being a building inspector. We've got maybe admin staff who maybe want to be a building inspector, but they wanted a level 3 qualification to give them like a basic awareness. So that was like a starter qualification. But then that quickly moved on to we designed a level 4. So we designed a level 4 diploma in building control, site inspection and plan assessment. And when that qualification was designed, it was designed for anybody to be able to come on to do it. You have to meet a certain criteria. You've got to be able to physically do the qualification. You've got to be able to go on sites. You have to be able to have been mentored. You have to have support from your employer, or you have to have previous qualifications. There is a criteria that you have to meet. But certainly that level 4 was the go-to qualification, we thought. Very much aligned like an HNC would be. It's over 120 credits as well, so it's well over 1,200 hours of learning. But what we did with that qualification, again, it was very much looking at it as, what does a building inspector do? So like the first unit is all about law. The second unit is about structure. So that's about loadings on a building, forces, shear, torsion, compression, etc. Looking at quite a large focus on approved document A, and things like that. And then unit 3 was about science and materials, which was like all about, energy efficiency within buildings, and part O and part S, etc., and part L. Then there was unit 4, which was fire safety, but that was like in a domestic setting up to flats, etc. Then unit 5 was residential site inspection, and then the last one was plan assessment. And we felt them 6 units together was really everything that a person would to have them skills to be able to apply for a role as a building inspector, or to enhance their knowledge and learning whilst there was a building inspector. But whilst I was doing the BCCA, we also realised that the BIC-Off is an extremely important document, and when you read through the BIC-Off, it's quite a challenging document to actually sit and read through, from cover to cover and gain an understanding. Also, things like operating standard rules and codes of conduct, etc., etc. So what we did, we went back to our awarding body, and we wrote 2 brand new units, which is our unit 7 and unit 8. And unit 7 is all about competency framework regarding the BIC-Off. That unit is solely about the BIC-Off. So the person gains all knowledge about every area of the BIC-Off. They do assignments in that, they do witness testimonies, they do professional discussions, all that type of thing. Then the last unit is all about the codes of conduct and operating standard rules. And again, that person then has witness testimonies to do and things like that. So we found out as an 8-unit qualification, it covers everything somebody new to the industry would want, somebody who's a 2A, that would be like the go-to qualification. But we don't just sit there with the qualifications as well. We also take them through CABE. Now, CABE have a membership professional standards committee, so we submit all our documentation to them, the qualification, the handbook. I then sit in front of a panel. The panel asked me about the qualification, where did we get it from, how did we design it, what industry backing did we have, and all the rest of it. And if CABE are happy with it, they come back and they accredit it, and that gets accredited for a period of 5 years. So every building control qualification we don't have to take it through that, but we do because we understand the importance of being attached to a professional institution as well. So people, would they get straight into membership, but it gives them that benefit that, they're doing a really good off-call regulated qualification and it's CABE accredited. But we also do an NVQ level 6 in building control, and we've just had that re-accredited now. That took about a year to do. And that qualification now allows people also, at the end of it, if they wanted to go down the professional review with a CIOB. So it gives different options. But we also realised in the level 6 was that it didn't have a fire safety unit. So we've just written a brand new unit called Fire Safety Project. So that's really for the level 6 of people who are currently working in building control, who want to do a 9-unit qualification, which covers all elements of building control, with the added benefit that the fire safety unit is in it. And people can, if they're quite happy doing residential, their fire safety project can be all about residential, but it also extends to people which have got, really large projects, and they can also do their fire safety project on that. So both qualifications, both again are CABE accredited, but give a wide range of different units for people to gain a lot more knowledge and learning, and obviously CPD hours and all the rest of it. But because we work so close with our awarding body, it's quite good that if you come up with an idea or people say to us, well, you maybe should put this unit, have you maybe thought about this? We go back to them with an idea, and because they're already a small organisation, they're part of Birmingham University, but they're a subsidiary, we put these ideas to them, and then we can develop it quite quickly, and then we can get that out to the industry, through off-call and everything else, without the delays of maybe waiting a year or 2 years for revalidation. So it's a really good working that closely with our awarding body, and it's the same one that we do it with the BCCA.
And with yourselves, you mentioned earlier that obviously you're more than happy to take calls and provide advice and help people, which I can attest to. There was a few times I called the office a few times and I was answered straight away, and I was given support where I needed to help with my portfolio. For people choosing a course, I take it you've got staff which would be happy to give guidance on what course might be best suited for them to go on to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, things have moved on a lot, Jack, in the last, certainly since we started doing the BCCA. It's gone from, a very, we are still a very small team now, but, we have, brand new database and things like that. So when people do apply now, we always ask them to apply via the website. And again, that helps us capturing people's data, the CV and things like that as well. So we can start to do them, initial checks. But we have a thing called eligibility criteria. So everybody comes through, we check that daily, and then what we do with the people who've applied for a qualification, they might put something building control. We've had lots of people at the moment who are currently registered at Class 1 that would like to become an RBI, but they don't work in the sector. They maybe they don't even work in the construction sector, but they've applied to be a Class 1, and we try and guide them on the best qualifications to do and all the rest of it. But we're not trying to make it the TTD show where everybody's got to do qualifications through us. We guide them regardless. And they apply to us through public sector. We guide them towards public sector qualifications. They don't have to do it with us. If someone wants to go to a local college and do a BTEC or an HNC, it's completely up to them. We're trying to give people the best advice possible so that they can get a career in building control. So, but yeah, we carry out eligibility checks, and we ring the person, guide them through what we think they should maybe do, and we leave it up to that person to make their own informed decision. But obviously that helps them, because we can also tell them about qualifications, but we can also tell them how they become a building inspector. And that's something else we're quite passionate about, is trying to get people into the industry and guide people on how you become a building inspector. And I'm quite active on LinkedIn. We've got some great success stories from people who, have started in building control admin, and they've worked their way up doing qualifications, and they've done our level 4, they've got the grades with CABE, and then they've gone on and become RBRs, and we've had some really fantastic success stories, So anybody become a building inspector if you've got that drive and ambition, and you do the right training development and things like that.
It's brilliant, David. Yeah, we've seen some of these achievements on LinkedIn. Yeah, we've seen many people, like you said, transition from admin roles, even technical admins and quality assurance people, all progress significantly to now becoming Class 2 RBIs, and that's brilliant to see. But beyond the formal training courses, and obviously the BCCA and all of these things attached to TDD, what additional support does TDD provide to RBIs and other professionals?
So, so for us, I don't know if you know this, but we don't, and this is maybe from me from my previous days working in a large college environment. We don't do group sessions, and that's I've learned through doing that it's all right when you've maybe got 25, 30 people, and you're trying to get the information across, and maybe everybody's in the room, everybody's quite happy doing it. But when it comes down to submitting assignments, maybe they don't fully understand it, maybe they're not as confident, maybe they're not as academic. So what we do at TTD, everything is done on a one-on-one basis, and everybody who does a formal qualification, the RBI, anybody, you can ask them. They all speak to somebody individually. So we have, if anybody wants a Teams meeting, all they do is drop us an email. We book Teams meeting. We are a small team, but we're really a very supportive team. The people as I'm talking to now, people are having inductions now. We've got meetings booked in this afternoon, having Teams meetings, even if it's a quick phone call, an email, but we're always at hand. When we was doing the BCCA, and we was at the peak of it, we weren't doing this, 9 to 5. We was doing this 7 days a week, 7 in the morning till 7 o'clock on a night. It was absolutely full on. And that, from a team point of view, is a massive effort to commit that amount of time. And like I said, that was 7 days a week as well. And that's supporting people, obviously, and if we don't answer the phone, it's only because we're on the phone with somebody else, or, we're busy doing something, but we'll always call you back. If you speak to people, there won't be many people that said that, they could never get in touch with us, because that just doesn't happen.
And first of all, I'd like to thank you for this time and dedication that you gave to in putting this competency scheme together, and because obviously it was very important for people like myself and Jack, and obviously other RBIs that went through it. Without all the time and effort, knowledge and experience within the industry that you guys have, we wouldn't have been where we are today. So thank you for that. So for RBIs now who may be feeling overwhelmed by obviously the re-registration coming up and competency requirements and all of this, what would you say is the best first step for them that they should be taking from now up until the re-registration?
I think what people need to do, again, it's we're trying to be supportive. We're trying to ensure that people don't feel overwhelmed. I can fully appreciate that when people went through this process, it was extremely stressful and people really anxious about it. And we knew that. When I did the training session we did the initial training session with all our interviewers, and that's one of the things our ethos was always about. It's got to be supportive. People are going to be extremely anxious. People have been working in the sector for many, many years, and they'll be so nervous about doing this. And everybody got into that. We felt like with our interviewers, everybody understood that. We record all our interviews as well. So with the quality assurance that goes into how these interviews are conducted to make sure that everybody is in a supportive environment. So all I'd say to people, if they are going through this, please don't be anxious. If you're worried about something, just give us a call. That's the easiest thing to do. I mean, my mobile's always on. We have a landline number. If we're not in the office, just drop us an email, but someone will always ring you back. Even if you just want to chat, just to talk about how it's going to look like I'm talking to you guys now, that's fine. But again, a few years ago, when I was traveling around the country, I was going to people's offices, and was doing Teams meetings, and was going to conferences, and just trying to get that message across to people so people can come up to you and talk one-on-one. And I think that we found that to be quite supportive, and people like that you could actually have that one-on-one. And sometimes people just want a little bit of reassurance. So if they just give us a quick phone call, they can soon get that reassurance. I think it'll be easy when we get the new guidance out, we provide the new handbooks, and people know what it's going to look like. The people can clearly see what they need to do and everything else. But it'll be very much like it is now. But again, it's just going to be about what have you been doing the last 4 years. That's what it's going to be about.
So when the guidance does come out, you guys are there to give that support. So anyone that is worried, you don't need to be, because you are and your team are definitely on hand to give that help if needs be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're only a small team, but we've all got mobile phones. We've all got. Again, you speak to anybody. You won't get anybody that can't get in touch. Just drop us an email and we'll ring you back. Whether it's myself or my colleagues, we'll always ring you back.
Yeah, that's spot on. Yeah, I think we've not got many questions left for you, because you've given us quite good answers to go through everything we really needed. I think last one for Nader.
No, it's obviously the general question that we always end our podcasts with is where can listeners go and find further information, guidance, or direct support, obviously from yourself, TDD, and things about the BCCA. So where would they find that further information? If you can just share that for the listeners, and we'll
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons, if you go to the website, I mean, we don't. This is one of the other things, again, with the way we do things at TTD. When you go onto the website doesn't tell you a great deal regarding the BCCA and things like that, but we've done that purposely because we want people to speak to us. That's what it's about. We want people to actually ring us and email us so we can talk to people. If all the guidance was there and everything else, it's, we wouldn't have that. That communication with people. As soon as you apply to the scheme, it opens up a whole new opportunity because everything's there. I mean, all of the documentation's there, the portfolio guidance, etc., etc. But that's purposely being done. It's not that we didn't want to put it on the website. We've purposely done that. So you actually contact us and ask the question, what's it going to look like? What do I need to do? How do I do it? Etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, again, I keep repeating myself. I mean, going forward, you just need to ring us, drop us an email. If you drop us an email to the admin box, that's the go-to one. We respond to everybody, all the time. So,
David, while you're here, would you take that recording as CPD on the port?
Yeah, I mean, anybody watching this is, I mean, there's like 45 hours worth, 45 minutes worth of CPD and things like
I
that.
wish it was 45 hours.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, I think we're just slightly going back to the CPD. I mean, we are mindful that our online resource, we're constantly trying to make it better, and we're trying to add new information. And we had somebody said the other day that some of our information regarding sick care in approved document B was outdated, but we do that purposely because we want people also to look at maybe what used to be and what was there previously and things like that, and what we do. And, you know, so we try and put lots of resources on. We try and put lots of links if we can find any. If anybody drops us an email and says, oh, I think this would be a useful link, we're quite happy to upload that type of thing. We just want the resource to be very, very informative, so everybody's got everything they need. And we use lots of websites as well for people if they want to, if they don't get opportunities. Like we use building.co.uk and CPD and Reba and things like that. Now, a lot of these are free resources where people can literally go on and do a 15, 20-minute CPD event if they wanted to. So we're trying our best all the time to give people that opportunity if they can't source it themselves.
And now Jack and I has added another resource, so the podcast can be considered another way of people gaining CPD.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I've just got to mention as well, I mean, just when we was doing the BCCA, we had a significant amount of help from ACI at the time as well. I mean, and obviously, which is ABCA now. And, you know, we didn't just design things off our back. We listened to what people said and what people required and how it should look and all that type of thing. So we, you know, was very focused on listening to industry and things like that, you know, to make it better. But I know all the time we're always looking for continuous improvement. And again, you know, this year we'll be doing a new training session on the new process and things like that. So we've got new people helping us with interviews. And I would say if anybody's on this, listening to this today, you know, anybody would like to help us do interviews, you know, that'd be absolutely fantastic. You know, the more the merrier. And we do appreciate you giving up your own time and to do this. And it's quite challenging, but if we can all help each other, you know, it just makes the easier for everybody else. You see, we have a good pool of people that we're not thinking. But and the other thing as well, that, you know, we can start this process in 2027. So we can start, you know, 6 months prior to the registration date. And also if people want to start to have an early engagement with us back end of 2026, you know, when they start developing portfolios again, people can start developing the portfolios and we can start to look at them and think, yeah, that's absolutely on the right line. So it takes that worry away that when they do come to submit 2027, everything they've done is absolutely fine. So just trying to make people feel more at ease.
Yeah, because that does make sense to start preparing it and putting it forward instead of everybody rushing all at the same time when everyone's got to do the re-registration. If it's a bit more staggered, that's going to be beneficial for obviously yourselves, for people applying to re-register. It just makes
sense
of taking away a bit of pressure off everyone, really. But we do appreciate you taking the time away from, obviously, you're a very busy guy, very busy team. We appreciate you taking the time to come on with us and talk about TTD and the BCCA. I think this podcast will relieve quite a few people that may be a bit, anxious, nervous about what's coming forward. And obviously new people that are joining the industry know that there are training available, and they can get guidance from yourselves on what might be the best option for them. So thanks for coming on. It's much appreciated.
No problem at all.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you.
Right, guys.
This episode of Behind the Regs is sponsored by Plan Checker. Plan Checker is a UK-based digital platform designed to connect clients with verified building control and construction professionals, making it easier to find the right expertise at the right time for the right job. It doesn't replace building control bodies, and it doesn't carry out restricted activities or functions. It simply creates clearer, more transparent access to the professionals working across the industry. If you're a professional, a client, or part of the wider built environment sector, you can learn more or sign up at planchecker.co.uk.